What is that? What is that? Seriously, what the f*** is that? I don't know, but I do know one thing. These, my friend, are what I call strange holes. The strange holes of gaming in particular. Ports or literal recesses in our consoles or accessories that just don't have any obvious reasons of being. Now let's begin with the one that started it all for me, and that's this port at the top of Sony's neglected stepchild, the PlayStation Vita. This port right here, termed the accessory port, has literally no use whatsoever. Its reason to exist is to just exist. Sony added it and maybe had concepts of a plan, but since the Vita was not favored by the public, Sony chose to not pursue supporting it. In fact, on the second revision of the handheld, along with the PlayStation TV, it was excluded. They literally gave up on doing anything with it. There are rumors that it was supposed to be used for a potential TV output accessory and even an external UMD drive, which both could likely be true since hackers determined the port is basically just a glorified USB port. People have even figured out ways to plug storage devices into the Vita through it. So almost kind of like the mini USB port at the top of the PSP, but 100% more useless and 100% more silly since it's proprietary. Classic Sony. Since we're on the PSP, let's just move over to that console, shall we? Like I said, there's a mini USB port on top that actually works, woohoo, but on both sides of that port are these little holes, with two having gold plates in it. These do have a use for a few accessories that actually exist for the PSP, such as a microphone, two types of cameras, one of which I actually own, a GPS receiver, and even a TV tuner. The accessories would have gold pins which, when pressed against the gold plates, would deliver power to the accessory. The other holes were used to secure the accessory onto the system, with the one on the left having threads so you can screw it in nice and tight. And down here on the console are two more gold plates situated below the charging port, which were used as a way to charge the PSP while it's in a cradle. And on the left side here we have the headphone jack, but it looks like it's got a little friend. This is actually a serial port which can be used for, unsurprisingly, many things, official and not. The most immediate use for it is with this headphone extension cable that came with most launch model PSPs. It has a media controller so you can efficiently turn up the volume or skip that one song you've been meaning to delete off your memory stick. But according to this Reddit thread, there's been other uses for it, such as for a motion sensor accessory, developer debugging, and of course, homebrew. Some dude actually coded a plugin that lets you plug in a keyboard into the serial port. On later PSP models, this port was actually altered to allow you to plug in video out cables so you can awkwardly blow up your games onto the big screen. Which I only say because you can't natively use any external controllers with the PSP, like the DualShock 3 or something. The PSP Go actually had Bluetooth for DualShock controllers, but I don't care. A similar serial port also exists on the PSP's competitor, the Nintendo DS, but sadly its use seems far more limited, as the only official accessory that utilizes the port is a headset with the microphone, which you can then use either for games that utilize the system's microphone or for voice chat, which, by the way, I just realized is so very funny. The fact a handheld Nintendo console from 2004 had native voice chat support, but a hybrid Nintendo console from 2017 doesn't, blows my mind. Another thing that blows my mind are these holes on the top of the console. Just kidding, these are just holes for you to slip a lanyard into, because this was back when everything used to have a lanyard. Games, phones, even the PSP and Vita had these loops for you to attach a lanyard, but I already had enough holes on the PSP to deal with, so I just ignored it until now. But man, I probably should have talked about it for the Vita, along with that funky little SIM card slot on the 3G model, but the less said about that, the better. Now, what's better than a terrible proprietary AT&T 3G connection? A local Ethernet connection that you can use with any service provider, which is what you can get on the PlayStation 2. If you look back here on the original Fat model, there's this little cover that says Expansion Bay. If you remove it, you'll see this port right here, as well as a whole ass hole underneath it. The port is used to connect the PS2's network adapter, which gives you not only the Ethernet port I hinted at, but also a modem jack. Now, while most PS2 games no longer have any official online servers running at this point, that doesn't mean this adapter is entirely useless, since it also has connectors for hard drives. That's what that huge ass hole on the console is for. The official network adapters only supported IDE drives, but I modified my adapter to have a SATA connector, but whatever the drive, you plug it into the adapter, slide it into the drive bay, and connect it to the system. Now, you have storage that can be used for things like Linux, MMOs like Final Fantasy XI, and surprise, hacking. With mods like the Free McBoot mod, you can install backups of all your games to play it straight off the drive, and it works perfectly. In fact, it's better than perfect, since the hard drive is leagues faster than the DVD drive, meaning faster load times. If you haven't hacked your PS2 to play backups, please stop the video and go do that immediately. Don't worry, I'll wait. And while we wait, let's talk about the Japanese PS2 for a moment, since the first model released there actually had a different method of connecting hard drives. Using this weird-ass card that slid into the back of the console, you can connect an external drive, which aesthetically is so very cute. It looks like a mini PS2. Not that one. But eventually, Japan joined the rest of the world and included internal hard drive bays on their future models. Okay, you're back? Let's talk about this thing now. This hole next to the USB ports is an iLink port, which was used to connect multiple PS2s together and let you play multiplayer games on separate screens. Apparently, this was how you could play Time Crisis with a dedicated screen for both players, an experience which sounds awesome but also sounds like the perfect way to trip the breaker. Since the iLink wasn't really used as much as Ethernet LAN play later in the PS2's life, the iLink port was phased out from later fat PS2s and never even a thought when designing the slim models. They probably thought Ethernet LAN play is just way more viable compared to iLink. Since people have at least like 2 or 3 Ethernet cables lying around in their kitchen shelf, almost no one has a FireWire cable at all. I don't even have one as a visual example. Now, speaking of slim, those models actually lose the ability to connect hard drives, at least officially. But thankfully, Sony was able to threaten the engineers into finding a way to fit a dedicated Ethernet port into the console. So you win some, you lose some. Maybe more so lose some, since no one wants to play a game of Outbreak with me. Ethernet ports, Ethernet ports, Ethernet ports. They're on literally every console from 2002 up to the current day, and the console to break this ground was the original Xbox. The inclusion of an Ethernet port right out of the box made things so much easier for people to connect to Microsoft's first iteration of Xbox Live without having to deal with an adapter. Sony! And another thing Microsoft did to make gamers' lives easier was equipping the original Xbox with a hard drive right from the start. So now you don't have to fumble around with the whole Ziploc bag full of memory cards. Sony! But if for some reason you managed to fill up your Xbox hard drive or just felt like parting with your hard-earned money, Microsoft did make memory cards an option, known as memory units. You didn't plug these into your console though. Instead, if you look here on your controller up here, you'll see that there's a couple of holes that are looking pretty lonely. Plug your memory unit in there. Now you have removable storage that lets you take your saves wherever you go. I know, I don't have a memory unit, so just imagine that happening. If this method of connecting memory cards sounds familiar, it's because it's nearly the exact same method that Sega used for the Dreamcast back in 1999. Did you know that Sega and Microsoft were pretty close back in the day? Apparently there were talks about trying to make the Xbox backwards compatible with Dreamcast games, but it was dropped. But that didn't stop Sega from releasing some exclusive sequels to their franchises on the console. Also, the controller seems a bit based on the Dreamcast controller, just with a few minor changes. Microsoft's Sega tangent aside, Microsoft continued using this method of dedicated removable storage with its next console, the Xbox 360, with its own type of memory units that I actually do own. Sleek, futuristic, and just as questionable, Microsoft upgraded the look of these units to match with the new console and actually took a page from literally everyone else and made it so you have to plug them into the console themselves. Thank goodness, because I really don't want to imagine the load times over this connection. Probably the smartest way to handle this memory unit situation, but not as smart as how they handled hard drive storage. Right up here in this little hollowed out area at the top is a hole, which with the 360's dedicated hard drives, you can plug in and give your console a cool 20 gigabytes. With options all the way up to 250 gigs. I'd still argue it's not the most smartest way to handle hard drives, but boy, it is the funnest way to do so. Now we're not done with our 360. Get back here. If we take a look back here, we'll see the console's I/O, which is not too dissimilar from the original Xboxes. Hey, there's even our best friend from a few minutes ago. And in this early era of the 360, this port was your best and only friend, because without a wired Ethernet connection, you couldn't connect to the internet. Yeah, Wi-Fi was not an option on this model of 360. Later revisions ended up making Wi-Fi a standard, but if you're stuck with this model, tethering yourself to the home router is the only way you can get your noob ass sniped in Halo 3 multiplayer. But what if I told you that's not entirely true? These holes right here are your key to a future free of wires, because these are where you mount the official Xbox 360 wireless networking adapter, which I do not have because my family believe that Wi-Fi signals can cause brain cancer. Now this is a very funny accessory because pretty much every one of the 360's competitors had it from the get-go. The PS3, the Wii, even the PSP and Nintendo DS had Wi-Fi without the need of any funny antennas, and those last two came out a year before the 360. I don't know, maybe they thought their controllers were the only thing that needed to be wireless, but I don't know. Alright, now you can leave. Get out of here, you little rascal. I want to talk more about removable storage, so we're going to move on over 2 generations later with the Xbox Series X, which is this absolute unit of a baddie right here. I always love the way this console looks. Its aesthetic is so ridiculously simple, but I feel like that's what gives it its charm. But like I said, this console also has removable storage, and this hole in the back is where the magic happens. With the console's proprietary expansion cards. That's right, the f***ers brought back memory units. The concept is of course the same, the only difference here is that it's the back now instead of the front, which I think is fine, especially since you're most definitely not going to want to be moving this car from place to place, like they expected you to do with memory units of the past. But I still think the PS5 did removable storage the best because not only is it removable, but it's also internal. Technically. You can get to it by popping off the faceplates, but hey, it's not sticking out, so I just consider it internal. Now, I segued to the PS5 because there's one more hole I wanted to talk about, but the thing is also on the Series X. But I'm already here, so let's just do it already. Here at the leftmost or topmost part of the console is this hole. And this is a hole I've seen many times before, not just on the Series S or X, but also several laptops, monitors, TVs, even my external storage drive that I have all my stuff on has one of these things. And what this hole is used for is a Kensington lock. Basically, it's a lock that you connect to your valuables like a laptop or whatever, and then you connect the other end to a heavy object or even yourself. So when someone tries to snatch up your item, they end up having to snatch up you, or a refrigerator, or something. I always knew these holes existed on laptops, but it wasn't until I bought these newer consoles that I realized I truly had no clue what they were for. And now I know, and honestly, I feel complete. Like I reached enlightenment or something. And with that, I think we can bring this video to a close. There's so many holes to cover, but time is valuable, and I don't wish to waste any more of yours right now. How about in the sequel video? More strange holes. We'll see if that happens.